actually wait till my printer stops having a fit. It's making all sorts of noises. But I'll just wait till everyone jumps on and then we can get started. There we go. I can start to see you all jumping on. Please say hello. Let me know who's there and where you're dialing in from. It's so lovely to see you all. I hope you've had a wonderful start to your day. I've had a beautiful start to my day, actually. I have been able to go out for a bit of a long walk in the national park and a swim, get my head sorted out and get ready to go. So I hope you're all having a wonderful start. Okay, so this is where, hello, good to see you there. This is where I get to answer your questions, which I'm very, very excited about. And it also helps me to be able to see how are you guys going in bedding down the information that you've learned over the last 3 lives. So there's been lots of cool information. There's been, some diagrams. I've popped up some example test results. There's been lots of information for you to unpack. So this is a chance for us to consolidate that. Hi, Diane, the Mooloolah Valley. You're not far from me. So I'm in Mount Coolum. So I've been to the Mooloolah Valley for my daughter. She's been horse riding up there before. So it was a beautiful spot. All right, so we want to be able to embed down all the information, start making some changes, start implementing things. So in this live, of course, please fire away, pop up your questions. Let me know if you've got any burning questions that you want to ask. And then I've also got my list of questions here from people who have posted up in the Facebook group as well. Hi, Claire from Ballarat. I hope it's nice and warm down there today. Hi, Nicole. It's lovely to see you again. Hi, Emma. And someone's dialing in from Roma there as well. I passed through Roma this year. I've been up that way. I went and did the Carnarvon Gorge hike. So the 6 nights and 7-day hike, it was such a wonderful, wonderful hike. And I loved it. I hadn't been to Roma before, and I loved seeing those big boab trees. It was so cool. Coming from South Australia, it was really, really interesting to see something so cool. And Berwick in Victoria. Berwick, hi, Victoria. I lived in Berwick, actually, for a little while. I did my PhD at Monash University, and the campus that I was at was in Berwick. So how cool was that? Alrighty, so let's get started as you all start to jump on, and please keep telling me where you're from and say g'day. So the first thing that I wanted to say is, can you believe that we're getting to the pointy end of this workshop? It's all gone so quickly. So we've gone through the first lives, we've bedded down that information, and now for you guys, it's your opportunity and your time to make that decision about whether you're going to join our Culture Wellness program and start working with us. So a little announcement on that. We close the intake for our program on Friday. So there's not too long for you to make your decision on whether you're going to join the program or not. So the program closes on Friday. So we're going to be putting up more information for you to get your head around it. But I wanted to give you a bit of a sort of hot hit of what the program entails, and then we'll get on to the questions. So for those of you who are ready to jump onto program, it is 6 months. So it's incredible. It's 6 months where every single week you have contact and support from a cultured wellness practitioner, from me, from a health coach. For Gabby, who is our naturopath, we also have support sessions from our psychologist, and of course, something that we've never done before, which is our community circles. So it's an incredible opportunity, because I know for you guys, when you feel anxious and you feel really overwhelmed, they're all the things and the structure and the support you need. So it's time to make your decision. and making a decision is almost virtually impossible when you're dealing with mental health issues. But you've got to jump. You've got to make this decision, and you've got to action a change in your life to get where you want to go. So over those 6 months working with us, we support you to go through, what do you need to eat? All those lifestyle changes that I talked about last night. Gosh, it seems so long ago. And we go through, of course, you have your health coach one-on-one calls. You've got calls with me where I can keep supporting you. And I, have learned so much over the years, and I really want to be able to continue in giving all that knowledge to you. It's guided, so we really support you to implement that. And of course, with those psychology sessions. So there's so much to do. Now, with the program also, there is lots of questions coming in about the testing. So we have with our intake coming up, so the intake that closes on Friday, that starts on the week of the 25th of October, we have a $500 gift voucher for those people who are starting with us in this intake. So in that $500 gift voucher, that is enough to purchase your stool test, so we can test, don't guess, and that's enough to buy your detox tools and all the stuff that we know that you need to get started. So that gift voucher is going to help enormously, and it's obviously our gift to you as starting with this intake. So this intake is really small because we are going to be doing our community circles. And someone has written here, what is the community circles, Kirsty? I'm already on program and on second cleanse. I'm sorry, it only says Facebook user there, so I can't see what your name is. But the community circles are going to be supporting people, and we're going to actually be putting people together that have like-minded, or people together that have got situations that are similar. You might have kids the same age. You might have similar health conditions. You might have similar autoimmune conditions. You might have similar experiences. So it's really important for us to be able to put you together with like-minded people, the same age, the same gender, the same experiences. And we're going to do that behind the scenes to make sure that that really is down pat for you. Now, these community circles, it won't be any more than 5 or 6 people in this circle. And also with the community circles, it is guided by one of our practitioners. So it'll either be myself or it will be Elisa and our psychologist, so Diddy. So you don't have to do anything. We will be there and we will guide you, and it won't be awkward, and you won't have to sit there, everyone looking down, wondering what do I say next. So don't worry about any of that. We've got that all sorted for you. But the whole point of the community circles is that we know in the research that when we share, when we do things together, and when we support each other, we know that that's how we affect the greatest change. And with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, with people being locked down and COVID and all that kind of stuff, we know that these community circles are what's going to get people through. We've never done this with the Culture Wellness program before, where you have so much tailored support and care. But when have we ever been in a pandemic before? When have we ever in Australia had whole, states locked down and having struggles and having issues and being disconnected from their community? It's just such a big problem. So we know that the time is right and that we need to do it now. Sorry, I'm getting settled with myself. So, all right. So we know that those community circles are very, very, very important for setting up change. And so over the course of those 26 weeks, and don't freak out that it's 26 weeks, it goes so quickly, but over the support of those 26 weeks, we guide you through what do you need to implement diet-wise, lifestyle-wise. We will go through your testing with you. We will start cleanses. We will do detoxes. And I talked about last night the importance of structure and routine, and just how it is the key change to implementing what you need to get to where you want to go. And so having someone guide you every single week is how that's going to happen. There's lots of structure. We put lots in there. Okay, let me go back and have a look at some of these questions. Oh, hello, someone. Victoria is from West Gippsland. It's lovely to see you. And Ruth's from Central Queensland. So someone is there saying, how do we apply for the Culture Wellness Program? And, oh, cool. One of the girls has put up the link there. So we've got a link so you can reach out and apply for the program and you can get started. Because, yeah, our intake closes on Friday. So now is the time to really action and get going on that, making that decision. Okay, so this is really important. Someone has put up there, we don't have the money to do the program right now. What are the options for a family of 4? So on my end, I'm sorry, it just says Facebook user. I'm sorry I can't use your name. But we have families on program all the time. So we have our program cost for the one person, which is always the mum. And we work with mum and we guide mum along the way. And then mum or dad, of course, it's not always the mum, but mum or dad will implement that. And then we have a family price. And we add the different family members onto the program for a small extra fee, which basically just includes the extra practitioner consult and going through any test results. So we have payment plans, and so that can really support families to get on board. And that's what we do. We deal with families all the time, every day. And the main thing is to make sure that mum is or dad, whoever's driving the program, is settled, and then we can start implementing change throughout the family. We also notice that it's a real oxygen mask experience. So it's really important to get mum or dad, whoever's driving it on the family, to get on board and to be settled and make sure that you're feeling successful, and then we can guide you to implement the change in the family. Now, obviously, there'll be lots of families joining us for this intake. And so we will be putting people together in the community groups who have children so we can share amongst each other, like, what do I cook? What are we going to do? We'll talk about bulk cooking, and we'll talk a lot about experiences with families on program. So we will, make sure everyone's doing that. Okay, so Emma, you've said here, my children are all young adults and getting around the no Wi-Fi at night is very difficult. Yes, especially when they are working late into the evening on uni work, or one is an apprentice sparky, so wants all the latest tech. It's much easier when they're little. Yes, and any suggestions? So I will get to that question, Emma, because it's really, really important. And it's all mainly about driving their goals and supporting them around what are their dreams and what are their goals. And then you can align that with being well and feeling well and looking after their bodies and looking after their brains and supporting their mental health so they can achieve their goals. And so finding that balance and getting those routines in place will help them to get where they want to go. But we'll jump into that in a minute. Okay, let me check my notes to make sure that I've covered everything. So really, what I just want to really emphasize is we're only taking on, because we're doing community circles, this intake, we're only taking on a very small amount of people. So don't sit on the fence anymore. Jump on and join the program. You must join by Friday. And so then we can start putting everyone in their community groups, and we can start getting everyone supported so we can kick off. Now, the other thing about that is that leading up to Christmas, we've had a few questions about people wanting to know about starting program and going into Christmas. And so, we do this every year, and it's actually really cool guiding people through program over Christmas, because we really support people around what I was talking about the other night about language and going into social functions and going into things, and how do I talk about what's going on with my health, and that I don't want to eat this, and that's going to support my body. So we expect that there's going to be some questions around Christmas and navigating those Christmas functions. So if you're concerned about starting program before Christmas, it's we've got your back on that. We're used to that. We've got all the tools in the toolkit. And Christmas this year is going to look really different. So, you know, I'm not going to be able to go down to South Australia to spend Christmas with my parents. Hopefully they might come up here, but it's going to look very different. So once again, it's an awesome time to do program at the moment, because we're not traveling and we're not going to a lot of social functions and doing a lot of things that we normally would. So make the most of this situation, and that it's a different time, and it's the time for us to action change, and make the most of it. You know, don't sit back and ruminate over these things. So jump on board. I can't wait till program starts and intake starts and you all jump on, and I can keep supporting you and helping you. But for those of you where the time isn't right for you to join program, you've learned so much, and I want you to action what you've learned and start implementing those things. So let's get started with these questions. So Ruth has a great question there about, are pulses, seeds, any nuts, potatoes, any dairy allowed on the keto diet, please? So on the cultured wellness therapeutic ketogenic diet that we do on program, Ruth, there's a moment in time where we don't have nuts, potatoes, and seeds. We do implement, how do I get rid of that? We do implement butter or ghee. So we utilize the butter and ghee as in that dairy component of the diet. But the pulses, seeds, nuts, and potatoes are quite inflammatory for people. And when we have an inflamed gut, it sets off an inflammation in our brain and causes a significant impact in our mental health. So Ruth, it's not on the Culture Wellness program. It seems overwhelming, but don't worry, because we've got your back with all sorts of other different types of foods and supports that you can eat. Okay, alrighty. So let's get going on what I've got here. So there's a question here. Let me just get started here. Here's a really good question from Tracy. I would love to know what foods and products are best for someone recovering from mold illness. I get histamine reactions from some foods, and I'm not sure fermented foods are best for that. My stomach is a mess from the detox protocol and stress. It needs some TLC. So that's from Tracy. So Tracy, thank you very much for popping that in there. So there certainly are certain foods that can kick off a mold issue. So we know that some coffees have mold in it. We know that there are certain cheeses that also have mold. We've got to be really careful with our fermented foods. And we've also got to be careful with if we're having fermented foods that are wild ferments and we don't know the strains that we're fermenting those foods in. So wild ferments can have all sorts of fungi, they can have all sorts of lactate producing bacteria strains, which means that they will convert into that lactate. And if we don't have the enzyme to break down that lactate, then it can cause a big response that our liver and our detoxification pathways can't break down. So that's why the culture wellness strains are so important, because they are delactate free, or they're delactate strains. And so that means that if we don't have the enzyme to break it down, then our body can still break it down because it's that delactate free one, and that it can support us. So if you are recovering from mold illness, then you absolutely need to have your activated charcoal, your bentonite clay. Really got to focus on your detoxification pathways, activated charcoal, infrared saunas. Cleaning up your gut, as you said, is really, really important, and making sure that you're mopping things up and you're providing nutrients. It's a really nutrient dense, really nutrient supportive diet is really important, Tracy. But yeah, there's lots that you can do, and constantly measuring. So we do a lot of mold testing at Culture Wellness to see how are you going. Have you improved? Are you pulling that mold out of your body? Is your brain recovering from that mold issue? So there's lots and lots that you can do there, Tracy. But the foods that will support you are going to be the Culture Wellness fermented foods. You're going to be supported by bone broth and making sure that you've got a high nutrient dense diet and that you're focusing on those detoxification tools and taking out the inflammatory foods. And I'm going to bang on about that constantly, is taking out those inflammatory foods. Okay, so let me get going on these ones here, and then I'll get back to you guys there. And of course, Elisa and the girls are in there answering questions as well. Okay, so what is the recommended? Let me start that again. What duration is recommended to cycle in and out of the ketogenic diet? How long can it take to kill some of the bad bugs? And being celiac, a lot of what I consume are fruit and gluten-free grains. So I feel like it would be really hard to do keto for an extended period of time, even knowing the benefits. So, wow, lots to unpack there. So we really highly recommend that when you work on the Culture Wellness program, you are in ketosis for the absolute minimum of those first 8 weeks as you're learning to go into ketosis. We also, whilst we're doing cleanses, you'll be in ketosis. So it's around sort of the 3 months that you'll be in ketosis full time. Then we start to cycle in and out of ketosis. But we teach you how to measure your ketones, because some people say that they're in ketosis and they're doing ketogenic diet, but they haven't measured. They don't actually know if they're in ketosis. They haven't learned how to understand that. So we teach you that. So there's a really good question about whether you cycle in and out of it. That depends on the inflammation levels in your body. So if your body's highly inflamed and it's got that predispensity to be inflamed, then you're going to spend a small amount of time out of ketosis and a longer amount of time in ketosis. So for me, my genetic susceptibility is that I get really inflamed really easily. I've got genetic SNPs. I've done my DNA sequencing and I've got genetic SNPs, which means that I've got to watch things. And so I feel better mentally and physically if I'm in ketosis a lot more regularly. And then I cycle out to nourish my glycogen stores and look after my muscles and my brain. And then I go back into ketosis and I spend most of my time in ketosis. So we would work with you to understand what's necessary with that. Okay, so the next question was, how long does it take to kill off pathogens? It's different for everyone. If you've had a pathogen there, if you've had a parasite there for 20 years, then it's going to take a lot longer than if you've picked up something a year ago. So for some people, it might only take 3 to 6 months to break down those pathogens and then to clear them off. For other people, it's going to take a little bit longer. But we can affect change very quickly, and we can help with making sure that your symptoms are reduced very quickly. Now, this is a great comment about being celiac. So you consume a lot of fruit and gluten-free grains. So on program, we teach you how to get into a routine of eating foods that will nourish you. Gluten-free grains and gluten-free food can cause significant troubles for people. It's highly processed, and it can cause problems because being that processed food, it can actually feed pathogens, it can interrupt the gut microbiome, and it can actually make matters worse. So you can do it. So some people are like, I feel really stressed out. How am I going to eat this way for an extended period of time? But you can do it and you can change. And, before you know it, you've got a new routine, you're nourished, you're more resilient, and you get on with it. So you can absolutely do it. It's just about learning from us. And of course, everything that we do on program is more education and more information and more tools and lectures from me. And so you can learn how to do that and how to implement it. All right, so there we go. So the next question, and I can see there, so for you guys, if you haven't turned on the chat in your box, or if you can't see the chats happening, make sure you turn that on and see it, because I can see Elisa and I can see that Emily's probably in there, and they're answering some of your questions as well on the side there. So look out for that if you've asked a question, one of the girls will answer it, otherwise I will. All right, so another question here. I love drinking bone broth. However, I find mine to be really bland and often add a store-bought one to it that is organic and grass-fed. Just wonder if you think this is counterproductive. So absolutely not counterproductive. If you want to beef up, literally, pardon the pun, or if you want to make your bone broth more gelatinous and you really want to, just make it more nourishing, you can add chicken's feet to it. You can add chicken's neck. You can add a lot more bones to it. You can add apple cider vinegar, and that's the acidic medium to draw out all the minerals and the gelatin from the bones to make it more nutrient dense. You can add, make sure you add some beautiful salt. That will improve it as well. And then you can add, like turmeric. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. So, but no, there is great bone broths on the market now that you can buy in a jar, so you can kind of, punch it up a little bit there. And also, this same question was, I have diatomaceous earth. Is this similar to bentonite clay? And what time of the day would you take it? Diatomaceous earth and bentonite clay are really different. And I'm much more of a fan of bentonite clay because it's a lot more soothing on the gut. Diatomaceous earth it comes in and it works like shards, and it's really good for clearing out parasitic activity by breaking it down through literally cutting them up with these shards that the diatomaceous earth has. But it can be really abrasive to the gut. And so I'm not so much of a fan. I'd love the bentonite clay for you guys to have. It's far more soothing. It mops up a lot more toxins, whereas the diatomaceous earth doesn't really mop up toxins. It just flushes things through. So they are quite different, and I'm more of a fan of the clay. And taking the clay at nighttime before bed is really beneficial. So a teaspoon at nighttime before bed, and just don't have any medication and don't have any other foods or supplements or anything around it. Just have it on its own before you go to bed. Okay, and so I'm also under the understanding that caffeine interrupts the absorptions of nutrients in the gut. Yes, it does. So you must have your coffee away from any supplements or food. And you recently stopped drinking as you're anemic, and just wondering how this plays out with having cultures. And then so many questions. Yes, there's always questions, and I love it. So if you are anemic, the first thing I would do is go and get a parasite test. So parasites love iron. They love chewing down on their host, which is you, and chewing down on your iron stores. So first of all, get in touch with us and we can organize a parasite test for you, and make sure that you are implementing the Culture Wellness cultures. You can still have your coffee, but have it separate to your other foods, and add in things like liver pate, add in your red meats, and work on your digestion. And of course, there needs to be a significant change to your gut, because there's someone in there that's taking away your iron stores. Okay, Rebecca Dodds has asked, hi, Kirsty, won't be able to make the live, but we'll catch the replay. So hello, Rebecca, when you catch this replay. Couple of questions. Will the starters be available on the New Zealand site? So you can purchase the starters and then we can send them over to you. We also have a New Zealand site as well, so they can be sent out there. So our starters are sent. So the question is, will they be shelf stable enough to be sent during these lockdown delays? Yes, they are. So our cultures are sent out frozen, and so they can withstand being out in the postal system for quite some time. So don't worry about that if you're over in New Zealand. And yes, we do have our New Zealand store, so they can be shipped within New Zealand and out to you guys. So look up the New Zealand store. And how do you keep your fruit under the liquid line when fermenting it in the kefir? Could I just use a folded cabbage leaf or something? I got some weights, but they don't fit into my jars. So great question, Rebecca. Yes, so just grab a cabbage leaf and, or probably need a couple, and just pop your cabbage leaves down to hold your fermented fruits or your vegetables under the brine line. So then there's no oxidization and oxygen getting onto those fruits or vegetables. So you can absolutely use a cabbage. You can use banana skins if you're fermenting bananas. And you can get bigger weights if you need to. But yeah, just use whatever in your fridge. So sometimes I'll even use like the outer leaves of a cabbage, or the outer leaves of my cauliflower that I get from the markets. So there's lots of things that you can do there. Alrighty, so the next question here, Erin Hillhouse has asked a great question about, over the years, I'm gathering up more food intolerances and more sensitivities to smell. I struggle with low mood, brain fog, nausea, joint pain, and low energy. I have been to naturopaths, osteos, but seems like I just get more reasons for symptoms, but still not a cause. So this is a really common thing that we see, Erin. So you've got pyrroles, Gilbert syndrome, NTHFR, and leads to taking supplements. Yes, and presume my gut health isn't good and my kids have the same intolerances. Do you find improvements and connections with the above issues and working on diversity and health to ideally have that long term and to let food be thy medicine? So, Erin, that is such a great question. So if you are finding more food intolerances, more sensitivities, more symptoms, it means that your gut microbiome is becoming more and more leaky. It means that there's less diversity in your gut, possibly more pathogens coming in. And it also means that your detoxification pathways in your body are getting more and more sluggish and under stress. So it's absolutely important, Erin, that you make a change and we flip this around. So we need to pull out the inflammatory foods and work on those detoxification pathways. We need to work on your gut microbiome. So we see improvements with issues like you've just mentioned, Erin, all the time on our programs. So we have a little testimonial guide in the Facebook group. So you can go and have a look at some wonderful testimonies there. And also we have lots of other testimonies on the Culture Wellness main website. But we see improvements all the time. And we also teach you to learn why that's happening. So some people, their detoxification doesn't work as well. And so we need to teach you why and what you need to do about that. And we need to teach you how to, seal up that leaky gut instead of more and more and more and more food intolerances and issues. But yeah, we see improvements. So Erin, it's really important that you feel that there is hope, and it's really important that you feel that you can turn around and you can make some changes, because you absolutely can. And very important to make long lasting changes. And that needs to get those long lasting changes. It's about the why, like, why am I doing this? What is wrong? What is the root cause? And then implementing those changes so they are your routines and they're what you do in your daily habits, and they become part of your life. All right, I'm just going to have a quick drink. Okay, beautiful. So the next question here. So this question is from Varna, and I hope I've pronounced your name right, Varna. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge in this great series. It's our pleasure. We love doing it. I've been a long-term user of the fabulous Culture Wellness ferments after learning about them through changing habits. So that's so cool that you've been using them. I've had IBS-related gut issues for ages, which has become much worse over a very stressful couple of years. So Vana, that first lecture that I did, or first live that I did, showing what stress can do to the gut, that would just be a game changer for you learning that. I've been working with an integrative doctor for 12 months, first to heal a very high positive hydrogen dominant Sibo issue, and now to deal with the results of a microbiome mapping and PCR test, which came back with high zonulin, very high strep, and Enterobacter. This is a lot going on for you, Vana. I feel for you. And then not much else. So no Bifido strains in there, no Akkermansia, none of the good guys. So Vana, this is a textbook, situation that we see at Culture Wellness all the time. And just for those people listening, the zonulin is how we measure sort of that inflammation from gluten and that inflammation from the diet that we're eating. I'm not sure if you can make the call, so I have a few questions. How does the Microbial test differ from the Microbiome mapping PCR test and the Sibo breath test? Does it pick up different things, and is it good to follow up from what I've already done? Okay, let's unpack that because it's a great question. We at Culture Wellness use both the Microbial test and we also use the Microbiome mapping test. And we work that out on your health history, and we also work that out on your symptoms. Those two tests do differ. So the Microbial test uses metagenomic testing. So it's a DNA sequencing testing. And what is cool about the Microbial test is not only do we see the DNA of all the microbes that are living in our gut, but we also see the metabolites that they're producing. So we see the metabolites that they're producing. So as I said to you the other day, it's about what are they producing, and are they inflammatory to us or are they anti-inflammatory? So when we're looking at our mental health, we want to know, are we producing GABA? We want to know, are we producing serotonin? Are we producing the metabolites that are going to help us with our dopamine? Can we produce things for our mental health? And so the Microbial really supports that understanding of not only what's happening in our gut, but also what are they producing to support our mental health? And are they producing toxic compounds that put pressure on our liver and our detoxification pathway? Now, the complete microbial mapping test is a little bit different because it looks at what is going on in the small intestine. It does look at things like calprotectin, which is an inflammatory response. So small intestine being Sibo, and it also looks at fecal zonulin. So, are we having issues with our, are we having issues with eating gluten? Is that causing us, problems? So if you are not sure which one to choose, then when you join program in your first consult, we will help you out with that through your symptoms. So often we see if it's more symptom-based with small intestinal, so further up, we would, often get the complete microbial mapping. But, if there's a lot of mental health issues, if there's a lot of toxic issues, then we'll get a Microbial. And then there was a great question there as well, Vana, about do you follow up? And yes, we do. It's really important to keep testing, retest all the time. Okay, so great question there, Vana, about which Culture Wellness program would suit someone like you. And in your experience, how long does it take to rebalance a gut with very high strep? So Vana, strep is my arch nemesis. So I have actually an autoimmune condition called PANDAS, which is a pediatric autoimmune neurological condition associated with streptococcus. So I had my first sort of big flare from this autoimmune condition that caused an enormous encephalitis in my brain, which meant that I was hospitalized and my brain completely swelled up. And it came from a strep infection. So I got strep throat and got very, very sick, and it caused major inflammation in my brain. And I unfortunately lost my memory for some time. I couldn't read or write. I had to learn sort of basic functions and skills. So yeah, strep's my arch nemesis. So I know all about how to conquer strep and how to deal with it and how to work with it to make sure it doesn't cause any problems. But if you've got small intestinal issues, if you've got Enterobacter, if you've got strep, if you've got all those sorts of things, then you will need to work on our tailored cultured wellness program. We need to watch you, we need to do a lot of testing with you, and we need to support you to implement all the tools to make a change. So you will need to do our tailored one-on-one program. You need care, and we need to supervise you and watch you. Okay, so I have a 14-year-old son with some OCD issues. So this is Varna as well, and I'm considering including the whole family in the Culture Wellness program. Do you have an option to include kids on the program? So Varna, I talked about that just before. So yes, we include kids on the Culture Wellness program. It makes sense to do it as a family and to work together as a family, and that everyone, recovers and moves forward. So we can include your family members, and we do the appropriate testing. Now, interestingly, Varna, just as a little side note for you, there's a lot of literature around Streptococcus overgrowth causing OCD behavior, causing ADHD behavior, and causing a lot of mental health issues. So the endotoxins from that strep can get into your brain and completely cause dysfunction in the brain, which can look like OCD and those sorts of things. So yes, we would really need to look at your son's gut, measure it for any streptococcus, and strep is contagious. And so if you've got it, there's a very high chance that your son will have a strep overgrowth as well. And we need to really closely monitor you. And then I personally would really closely like to monitor you, because it's my thing. Strep is my arch nemesis. Okay, so thank you, Elisa. I can see you in there answering all the questions that are coming up. So I will get back, but it looks like Elisa's under control there with what you guys are popping up. And I will continue on with the questions that I've got here. So, so many cool comments. Thank you for sharing so much knowledge. Well, it's my pleasure. When watching videos, questions keep popping up, so I've decided to write them down. I'm very grateful for your answer. My liver is not detoxifying properly as it should, and I was diagnosed with rosacea. So that's really just such a key that I was talking about the other night. If you see, rashes, and if you see eczema, rosacea, psoriasis, any of these things coming out in your skin, think about your liver detoxification. Now, so you can't process fats, and I'm in the process of healing your liver. Go you. And I know how beneficial fats are, and I can feel sick after consuming them too many. And I also get an outbreak on my face. And that's why I can't find a keto diet that works for me. Is there any other option that you could advise regarding diet and working on a keto diet? All right. So digesting fats is like flexing a muscle that you haven't used for a while. So our liver supports our gallbladder. So if our liver's struggling, then our gallbladder is going to struggle. But our gallbladder is there to emulsify those fats, to shoot the bile there. So the liver shoots the bile into the gallbladder, and we use that bile to emulsify those fats so we can digest them, we can process them. But it is like a muscle. So if you're anything like me and my mum and, other generations, and we were told to be low fat, then we haven't flexed that muscle for ages and ages and ages, and in fact, possibly not for our whole lives. So our gallbladder hasn't had the opportunity to be able to process and emulsify those fats and to produce the appropriate amount of bile. So like flexing your muscle, you've got to get into the gym or you've got to go out and use it or you'll lose it. It's the same when you get onto a ketogenic diet. You need to start slow and you need to use it, otherwise you'll lose it. So for some people, when they start on the ketogenic diet with us, if they are having trouble emulsifying those fats and processing the fats, we often use a supplement called ox bile. And that's, a supportive sort of outside mechanism. And it's a tablet that you can take to support the bile production so you can emulsify those fats whilst your body starts to grow that new muscle and flex that new muscle to be able to utilize those fats. The ketogenic diet is the option that you need to take. It is the anti-inflammatory option that you need, but you might need a little bit of support whilst you get started, which is why it's so important to start a ketogenic diet under supervision, so on program with us, so we can tweak these things. Otherwise, like what you're feeling, it's like, oh, well, this doesn't work for me. So it's not that it's not going to work for you. We need to make some tweaks and some changes so it's successful for where your body's at. So we use a lot of bitter herbs. We in our cooking, so things like rocket and dandelion greens, and using bitter herbs to support that gallbladder to produce the bile. We use ox bile, but we also then have medicinal herbs and formulas that we would prescribe for you to support that liver and that gallbladder to be able to get the most out of those fats. So I would absolutely recommend that you still utilize the ketogenic diet, but you'll need tweaks and changes, and we can help you with that. Okay, so can your products be sent also to Europe? Yes, they can. And for heads up for all of our European crew, hello over there, we will close our shipping for Europe for Christmas on the 31st of October. So you've got a little, it's what, 20 days. You've got a little bit of time to organize your shipping. And also it's far more cost effective to ship your cultures over there if you do it in a bundle of 4 or 6 cultures. You can freeze your cultures for months and months and months at a time. So it's better to get it in bulk, freeze them, take them out when you need them, and then it's far more cost effective and it's easier for us to ship in a bigger bundle. So if you want to do that, then just get in touch with Lily at info@culturewellness.com and she can organize to get a big bundle sent out to you and organize the shipping for you. All right. Okay. So should, after balancing our gut microbiome, anti-aging processes automatically trigger, or is it advisable to add hyaluronic acid, MSM, and collagen as supplements? Oh, I love how you're thinking about anti-aging. So anti-aging is about our mitochondrial function. It's about the length of our telomeres, which is at the end of our DNA. And I could get really nerdy here, but I'm trying my best to hold back and to stay focused. But anti-aging is about how much oxidative stress is on our body as well. So yes, adding in things like MSM and adding in collagen is really important. But once we balance our gut, then we want to add in foods that have things like resveratrol in it and polyphenols, because they support mopping up that oxidative stress, and so our bodies haven't got that toxic waste, and so we don't age really quickly. Working on that mitochondrial function, so that means getting outside and having contact with the sun and the energy from nature. It's like a battery. If you're not spending time out in nature and out in the sun and in natural light, you're not plugging into your battery, your body's battery, and you won't have mitochondria, which is our energy, our anti-aging, and all those sorts of things. So yes, you need to do both. You need supplements and you need to heal your gut, and you need to, and these are the things we'll teach you on program to understand about, the oxidative stress, how your liver's detoxifying, all those sorts of things. Okay. There's another great question here. I see you are selling broth. I have a vegan diet. Is the microbiome balance possible without consuming any animal products? So far, I haven't seen a success in really rebalancing the gut microbiome on a vegan diet. Our gut and our detoxification pathways, the lining of our gut, all of these things require amino acids that we find in animal foods. So yes, you can take branched chain amino acids as supplements. You can take all sorts of supplements, but it then requires your body to digest those supplements. It also is very expensive, very, very expensive. And it doesn't add in B12. It doesn't support our iron stores. And so far, I haven't really seen success on a vegan diet supporting the gut microbiome. I have seen great success on a vegan diet with the adding in some bone broth, adding in some eggs, and adding in collagen, so eggs and fish. I've seen success with that, but not a plant-based or a vegan diet. Okay, another great question here. In my yogurts, I find Lactobacillus acidophilus saying that it helps to restore gut lining. I don't see it anywhere in your fermented foods. Is there a special reason for this? And yes, there is. So the Lactobacillus acidophilus is a lactate-forming bacteria strain. And so as I was saying before, lactate-forming bacteria strains can be histamine-forming. They can be very, very hard for the body to break down that lactate. If we don't have the appropriate enzymes, we can't actually break down that lactate, and therefore it can build up in our system and cause problems. And we get that big histamine spike, and it won't down-regulate all of those things within our gut. So that's why I haven't chosen it, even though in the literature, acidophilus has got some great literature around supporting the gut microbiome. If you've got poor liver detoxification, if you're already toxic enough, if you can't break these things down, then those standard bacteria strains are going to actually cause more issues for you. And that's why a lot of people say, I tried fermented foods and I felt really sick and I got, rashy and my nose, I had to blow my nose and I got watery eyes and all those kinds of things. That's from the fact that, the body wasn't able to break it down. It was histamine forming and so forth. So that's the reason why. Okay, so another great question. Would consumption of the Kefir grains produce the same results as the Culture Wellness culture starters? So very, very different results. The Kefir grains are a wild ferment, and so they will have those lactate-forming strains in them. So some people can't break that down. And the results are quite different because, of course, if you can't handle those lactate-forming strains, then it's going to put pressure on your gut and your liver, and you may actually feel worse. So it is a very different situation having Kefir grains rather than the cultures. And is yeast present in your culture starters? Yes, so we use a Saccharomyces boulardii yeast, which is a beneficial yeast that is known in the literature to crowd out candida and crowd out opportunistic and pathogenic yeast. So it's a good guy. So that's a really supportive yeast, whereas we know that in the wild ferments, there's all sorts of different yeasts, some beneficial and some not. But the Saccharomyces boulardii, we use that at high doses for our Crohn's and ulcerative colitis patients, for our irritable bowel patients. And so it's great that it's in our cultures because the efficacy is amazing, and we know that it supports the gut so much. Alrighty, great questions. I love these. So I'm just going to put this to the side so I don't get confused with what I have answered and what I haven't. So Erin, I've got your questions here that I answered, but I can also see that you're popping up here and Elisa's answering your questions too, which is really cool. Done the bone broth one here. Okay, Lena, I've got a question here. Number one, when completing colonoscopies and they send samples away for testing, are they testing for parasites and worms? So no, when they do a colonoscopy, they're looking at the function and the structure of your gut. So they're not looking at and sequencing your microbes, any parasites, worms. They're not looking at if there's any yeast in there. That's a very different type of testing and sequencing. So it's very important to make sure that if you have an extremely compromised gut, and maybe you've got Crohn's or colitis, or maybe you're a celiac and you're having that investigated, that's great that you've had the colonoscopy to see if there's structural or functional issues. But separate to that, we also need to do our microbiome testing to look at who's in there and what's going on, because they're the ones, the microbes, they're the ones that actually change the environment to cause the structural problems. And that's why we go and look for the colonoscopy. So two very, very different things. So you need to test them separately. Okay, my 15-year-old suffers from anxiety and depression. I'm so sorry to hear that. And wants to start the Kickstarter program. That's so cool. So Lena, you're on week 8. How do I support her without overwhelming her or making too many changes at once? It's such a great question. So there are many, many, many things that we can do there. And the biggest thing is to go in with really nutrient-dense foods. So we know children, in that teenage age bracket, the 15 age bracket, anxiety and depression, they're often quite low on their nutrients. Now, that's nothing to do with you not feeding them a beautiful diet. It's more that the parasites, worms, whatever's going on in there is draining it. And we also see, anemia is really big around that 15-year-old age bracket. So we want to get in with the high nutrient foods and just add one thing at a time. So just low and slow. We also want to make sure that we're getting and testing the blood levels. So what are the zinc levels? What are the vitamin D levels? Having a look at making sure that, all of the biochemistry is in balance. And so, it just gives everyone so much calm and peace of mind when we can go through those bloods and look at, okay, so let's get those zinc levels up. Let's work on those iron levels. And slowly but surely, when we add those levels up, we start to become more resilient. We can make bigger changes and we can start to get on program. So we just go really, really low and slow, Lena. Okay. So yes, you can introduce the ferments, just really small, so make one of those cheesecake recipes or make some yummy ice blocks. We're coming into summer now. So, make some raspberry ice blocks, make maybe some bliss balls with some fermented dates and a little bit of fermented yogurt. So make it fun and, look for those sort of tried and true recipes that go well and just add in a little bit of ferment slowly but surely. Okay, and what are the first things to remove? She doesn't have any known allergies other than pineapple. And yes, the sugar needs to go. So I would definitely take out the sugar, take out anything processed that's in a packet, and I would start to add slowly into the yogurt, any of the ferments, and also taking out the grains slowly but surely. So maybe the grains stay in for lunch with, some gluten-free bread or some fermented bread. But then for dinner, it's more a meat and 3 veg, that kind of thing. So go very, very slow. And with the amount, you've written here, the amount of CFU, which is that colony-forming units, which is how we measure the probiotics, the amount of CFU in the Kefir and the yogurt, do they increase with each ferment, or is the total CFU for all 5 ferments that come from the starter? Great question. So when you get your starter and you add your coconut cream and you add your coconut and then add your coconut yogurt, you ferment it out. If you ferment it for around that sort of 24 hours, you will get your CFU up to the average of 41 billion CFU. Now, it's going to be different for everybody because everyone's fermenting it for different times and so forth. But the tartar it tastes, the more CFU count. And that's the 41 billion CFU. And then the next time that you ferment, when it's really tart and you can taste it, then you're also going to get that 41 billion CFU. So it doesn't really increase with each ferment, and it's not cumulative. So all 5 ferments have the 41 billion CFU. It's per ferment. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. All right. So a great question. And Lena, getting teenagers on program, it is an adventure, but that's why the tailored program and the community circles is so important, because we can support you every single week to guide you through that and to tweak that and share that experience. But it can be done. It absolutely can be done. And I'm so stoked that you're on week 8 of our Kickstarter program. That's so cool. Alrighty, so Chrissy, you have asked a great question there. Do you pay for one program for the whole family? Which, yes, you do. So you pay for that one fee for the whole program. And then every family member that you want to add on is an extra $315. And so you don't have to have a program for each family member. I mean, that's ridiculous. No one could do that. So it's an extra $315 per family member to bring them on the program. And what that covers is your naturopathic consult. So every family member on program needs to see our naturopath, the beautiful Gabby, to make sure that there's no issues with regards to the herbs, to make sure we can get your blood sorted and all the testing sorted. But yeah, there's only one overarching family fee, and then you just add on the extra family members, and the small fee just covers the extra consults and a bit of admin time. You're a family of 5 and 7, 5, 7, 5 and 18-month-olds. Okay. So that's perfect. We can add everybody on. We've had a family of 6 kids before, Chrissy, and they just smashed it. It was phenomenal. They were all on program and they were just absolutely smashing it. Great question there about making the yogurt and all of our ferments. So you absolutely, when you make your first ferment, once it's ready, you keep a cup from that first ferment and then you start your second ferment. And then once that's ready, you keep a cup from that one and you go on to your next ferment. And that goes on for about 5 ferments. After the 5 ferments, we start to see a change in the microbes, and we start to see a change in the balance within the CFU and so forth. And so then you need to get a new starter. But that's exactly right. So you keep a cup and you just keep going. And that's the same for the diversity dough, for the Kefirs, all of those sorts of things. I'm just going to have a look over at your questions and make sure that I can answer them all. So there's a question here about my 20-year-old has probable Sjogren's and 10 years old has severe eczema. Can they be on the same program? So absolutely, they can be on the same program. Both of those conditions is a big red flag for me that we've got to look at their gut microbiome and we've got to look at the detoxification pathways. And so we've got to find out what's the cause. Why is there such a low diversity within their gut microbiome? But yes, same program, same foods, same support, which just makes it much, much easier for mum. So another great question here about I've had a hair mineral analysis test And do we consider those tests as well? Yes, we do. So we do hair mineral analysis. We do obviously all of our gut testing. We do incredible hormone testing. We do utilize the Dutch panel hormone tests. It's extremely effective at having a look at cortisol levels, how your adrenals are functioning. Are you producing too much estrogen, too little estrogen, progesterone? What's your testosterone levels doing? How's your melatonin, so your sleep hormone? It just covers everything. And so that's another test that we highly recommend that we utilize for our patients. And also we look at the oats test, and that helps us to see, is there any dopamine? Are you producing any of the right neurotransmitters? Is there any mold issues? And looking at a lot of, once again, those microbial metabolites and those pathway issues. But we look at all sorts of testing. It's I think I may have said to you guys at the start, like the whole point of me setting up Culture Wellness and what we do at Culture Wellness was because when I was really unwell and when my son was really unwell, there was not one place to go and get everything that you need. And so that's, my biggest dream and goal, and why Culture Wellness has been set up, is that you can go and all in the one place, get the testing you need, get the support, have, an understanding and education around why you need to implement certain things. Okay, so just going back over here and having a look at the questions a bit further up. So Saccharomyces boulardii might be a beneficial strain, but it tends to not agree with me. Have tried a couple of times and each time it upsets things. I wish it wouldn't. Emma, I love that you've written that because it's such a great teaching tool for me to explain something really important to you. So are you listening? Listen up. When we affect change in the gut by having things like SB, it causes troubles. So when we take things like Saccharomyces boulardii or we add fermented foods in, we go in there and it starts to kill off the strains or the pathogens that are causing the problems. When we kill them off and we make changes, they release these toxic compounds. So they release endotoxins, they release all sorts of horrible toxins that then stress out our liver, stress out our brain, stress out our detoxification, and put our bodies into that immune state of fight or flight. Our immune system thinks, what's going on here? We're in a state of alarm. But you don't want to stop because you need to make that change. And so this is what makes me sad, Emma. And this is why I'm so glad that you've actually raised this and you've said that, because that's when people just stop. And then they get caught in this like no man's land holding pattern of trying something, and then they feel sick or it doesn't work. They don't get any support about understanding why that's happened or how to move through that. Then they stop and just get stuck in this kind of like, I feel crap, but I can't try this and I can't try that. And I'm very overwhelmed and I don't know what to do now. So when people come on program, we expect what's called the Herxheimer reaction. And the Herxheimer reaction is when pathogens die off, when changes are made in the gut, and you get an increase of toxins within your body. We expect that. We expect a Herxheimer reaction. We expect that you're going to feel a bit off and that things happen. But that's how you get to the other side. That's how you get to feeling well. But what frustrates me is that there's not enough information and education about what to do when you get that Herxheimer reaction, which is what happened to you, Emma, where you don't feel right, you feel off. And then you start thinking, oh, it doesn't agree with me, I'm allergic, this isn't right. And no, it's doing what it needs to do, and it's exciting, and we need to embrace it and get so stoked about, you know what, I'm making this change. I'm going to feel so much better after this. I can't wait. So Emma, working with us, if it feels like it's not quite right and it's putting pressure on your body, that's when we would support you around implementing detox tools to mop up those toxins, to make sure you're having enough fermented foods and enough broths and enough of those nutrient dense foods to make sure your body can handle it. And also education and going through our program, there's so many videos and so much support, but understanding why. So why is that happening to me? Embracing it as an exciting change, and then okay, I better go and do a sauna, I better have my charcoal, I better implement my detox tools so I can get rid of this toxic stuff, and so I feel better. So it's a big mindset shift about, I think I'm allergic to that, I don't feel well, and those kinds of things. But once you understand why these things are happening and it's a hex, I feel terrible, but I've got my detox tools, I know what to do, I feel safe, I feel secure in the fact that I understand what's happening, I know why that's happening, and then you just embrace it and you get excited about feeling well. It's just such a cool thing. There's another question there about, can you help people with ulcerative colitis? So absolutely we can. So our last, and some of you may have even been part of our last workshop series, and the focus there, the theme of our last workshop series was autoimmune conditions. And we, dive right on into how do we become, in this situation if we're having an autoimmune condition, how does our body get to being in a state of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's and irritable bowel? And once again, it comes back to that inflamed gut, that leaky gut, and our body being in that state of high alarm and just being completely devoid of the diversity of those great microbes that we need. So yes, ulcerative colitis is, on the books at the moment, even that I'm working with, I have quite a few patients that I'm working with currently personally with me. And, we have lots and lots of crew, and we get out the other side. There's a wonderful story. And I think Elisa or someone put up the link to it. So go back and have a look. Or maybe Elisa, you can put it up again. There's a wonderful, wonderful story about Di. And Di, she was in all sorts. She had she had horrible Crohn's, and, she had a significant chunk of her bowel cut out. She was so inflamed and had so much trouble. She was just on the couch, absolutely debilitating. And it's really, really interesting to listen to Di's testimony and her story about how she applied what she knows now about the importance of diversity in the gut, taking out anti-inflammatory foods, finding out the pathogens within her gut that are causing the troubles, and how she completely went into remission and turned her condition around. And you know what? I just saw in live number 2, I saw Di pop up a post which just made my heart soar. She had just had a follow-up with her gastroenterologist, and he had done a colonoscopy, and he had said to her, everything's fine, don't come back for another 5 years. So, I mean, how cool is that? And if you're not inspired by stories like Di, then, you've got to start getting inspired. But, Di did that through food as medicine, through getting the right testing. And she had a lot of support from Cultured Wellness. And, obviously she did a Cultured Wellness program. But please watch Di's story and all the other ones. If, you've got Crohn's and UC and you've got conditions like that, because it's lovely to have hope. Lovely to have hope. Okay. I'm just reading some questions here, so hang tight, and I might have a quick drink while I do that. There's a great question here. So it just says Facebook user, so I'm so sorry. It says that you spoke to Elisa this morning, so you had a discovery call. That's awesome. I'm so happy that you've reached out. You must reach out. I know for when you're feeling anxious, it's the worst thing possible to reach out and to throw yourself out there and dive on in, but please do. It makes a big difference. You've got chronic eczema. So can you share your thoughts on the Kickstarter program and how long it will take to start feeling benefit? And is there anything else I can do immediately to start having some relief while I wait for tests? I also feel I have been more anxious than ever and wonder if chronic eczema and anxiety go together. So absolutely. When you have eczema, it's once again showing us that your liver and the functions in your body and the pathways in your body are under pressure and they're under stress. And so when your body is toxic and under pressure and under stress, then you are going to have a lot of anxiety. It's going to impact your mental health significantly. So the first thing we need to do is to ensure that, well, number one, you get on program. That's an absolute must. We must get you on program to help you. And then we can structure and order it for you so you don't feel anxious and you know your path moving forward. There's nothing worse than not knowing what to do, which is what I can sense from what you're writing here. The next thing is that we can reduce your anxiety and your eczema by adding in those detox tools, which is part of the Kickstarter program. So then we need to get, the charcoal and your clay, and we need to help you with that. And you can do that whilst you're waiting for your test results. You can start the program, we're kicking off, we're ending, finishing our intake this Friday, and we're starting program straight away. So you can have your detox tools, you can start your fermented foods, and you can get into quite a lot of balance there whilst you're waiting for your test results to come back. So there's absolute benefit on making sure that you can implement those small things whilst you're getting started on Kickstarter and also whilst you're waiting on your test results. And yes, it's like if you're starting to see your brain struggling with anxiety, and you're starting to see your brain struggling with memory, insomnia, racing thoughts, feeling overwhelmed, you're starting to get stuff out of your skin starting to be affected, then we know that we need a lot of support for you, and we've got to break down those functions to sort that out. So I hope that helps. But yes, jump on program and let's get you sorted. It's as simple as that. Now there's a question up here. So there's a great question there, wondering your thoughts on a gut-directed hypnotherapy. Thanks for all your wisdom. Oh, well, my pleasure. Yes, hypnotherapy would be amazing. Remember, what we need to teach the body to get out of that fight or flight state and into that rest and digest state. And so, yes, you will need to do more with regards to working on program with your food, with lifestyle choices. You need to do it all. There needs to be a balanced approach to it. But that gut-directed hypnotherapy is going to be an absolute game changer to telling your nervous system that it's okay and that it doesn't need to be so stressed out. So that's very, very important. Okay. Just looking here at your questions. I'll come right down to here. There's so many going up, so I just want to make sure that I get them all. So my skin is scaly. Will the program eventually bring skin into order? Sandy, yes, absolutely. So Sandy, if your skin is very scaly, that shows us that your all of your omegas, so your omega-3, 6, and 9 are probably quite depleted. And in our liver, we have 4 different pathways, and each of those 4 different pathways utilize different nutrients to be able to push those toxins through so we can eliminate them. One of those pathways utilizes omegas and magnesium. And if that pathway is under pressure because you're getting rid of too much toxins, then it will drain all of our omegas, and then we get a lot of scaly skin, and we just look dry and our skin is compromised. So it's showing from the outside that there's a deficiency in those omegas. So we can help you to prescribe the right ones for that. And certainly when you get your gut into balance, your gut won't be producing as much toxicity, so your liver won't be under so much stress, and so then you won't need such high doses of those omegas. Okay, is it safe to take bentonite clay and charcoal daily? Yes, it is safe, but you want to obviously have periods of time where you focus on your detoxification pathways, and then periods of time when you're focusing on adding nutrients and building up your gut microbiome, but it is safe. And then would you take bentonite one night and then clay the next night? So on program, we have people taking the bentonite clay at night before bed and also taking the activated charcoal during the day. Must be taken away from food and supplements, but you can take both on the same day. Can children take bentonite clay and charcoal? Yes, they can. And Chrissy, it depends on their age. Sometimes we just whack them in a bath and throw the clay in there and just say, look, we're going to have a big mud bath. And then we can tell them you can eat the mud because you obviously want them to have the clay, but you can absorb the clay through your skin. And so if they're having a clay bath and you're also adding the bentonite, the activated charcoal in there, then they're getting it. And so it's a great place to start. We also can syringe it in depending on the age. So there's lots of ways that we can help you with that, Chrissy, to give you resources and ways that you can get your kids to take it. But we've got all the skills and all the tips and tricks that you can possibly imagine. Elisa, myself, Alicia, the culture, wellness, health coaches, we all have, we've got kids. We've taken our kids through the program. We've worked with hundreds of families. We've got all the troubleshooting under the sun. And certainly from my education background and my teaching background, I've also worked on a lot of those tools and tips and tricks in the classroom, and when I've been teaching outdoor education and taking kids on camps and all sorts. So we've got you covered on that. Don't worry. We've seen it, tried it, and done it all. Oh, Sandy, you're on second cleanse. That's so cool. That's really, really awesome. So maybe you need to have a look at your omegas, Sandy, and have a chat to Gabby about that. Another question. I'm not sure if you've answered this yet, but what's the fermenting best protocol for anxiety? So I've just been chatting about certainly the cultured wellness yogurt is amazing for supporting your anxiety levels because it's going to help to produce more neurotransmitters like our serotonin and like our dopamine, and it's going to calm down that inflammatory response. And also the best protocol to use would be the culture wellness protocol. So the one that we have with the intake starting soon, and we're closing that intake on Friday. So don't miss out on that. I'm going to keep saying it over and over and over again, but I would hate for anyone to miss out and hang around and sit on the fence with that. The clay bath just might clog the pipes. Ruth, I actually have heard that someone's husband on program, I wish I could remember, someone's husband on program was like, that's it, no more clay baths, because they were on a septic system, I think, and they couldn't have any more clay. All right. So yes, certainly. Elisa will pop the link up for you to go over and have a look at the Culture Wellness program. And so I'm getting close to finishing up with all the questions. I always allow myself an hour to do these, and it always goes for an hour and a half. I can't help myself. I keep talking. So Wednesday night, right? So where are we? We're Monday. Intake for program closes on Friday. But Wednesday night, if you're still not sure about the program or you've got more questions, Wednesday night, I'm going to be doing another live where I'm going to take you inside the Culture Wellness program to look at the modules, to look at, how you learn in there, what it entails. And I'm just going to guide you through. And I know that it's quite difficult to okay, I want to do this program, but what the hell is this? So I want to reduce all of those questions, and I want to reduce all of that sort of, anxiety around what does this all entail. So make sure that you tune in on Wednesday night. Of course, there will be replay if you can't, if you miss it. But of course, if you want to save your spot, because we've only got a small amount of spots because there's only so much time in my diary to help you guys, and I will be running a lot of the community circles that we're doing. Please jump on and make sure that you grab your spot. Okay, so there's more questions. I still want to answer them all. I guess there is a definite link between gut issues and severe osteoarthritis. Yes, Ruth. And Klebsiella, H. pylori, Streptococcus in the literature, the arch nemesis that can cause osteoarthritis, and it certainly can be turned around. So, there's hope. There's absolute hope. So what is the difference between the 2 6-month programs that you have available? Great question. So we have our self-guided online 6-month program, so the Optimal Gut 6-month program. So that's online, and you guide yourself through that. So there will be no, one-on-one calls. There won't be any of the community circles. And so it's just about you doing it at the pace that you can and at the learning style that you've got. And that suits people that can learn alone, and they can self-guide, self-motivate, and they can support themselves in that process. The program that we have, our Cultured Wellness tailored program at the moment, which is our intake coming up, or that's happening at the moment, that is a one-on-one tailored program where it's specifically tailored to you, and that you get one-on-one care with myself, with the health coaches, with our practitioners. And so it's very, very different, very different. One self-paced guided, one is complete one-on-one care and nurturing support. I highly recommend that if you've got significant issues or any mental health issues, you almost absolutely must do it in that guided in that guided, tailored, where we care and support you. Okay, chronic eczema, how do you expect it would take to start feeling better? Well, we see the eczema coming down sometimes after 2 weeks, definitely after 3 months. And then please have a look at, once again, at the testimonies for dear Archer, little Archer boy. So he was just completely covered in bandages. His eczema was so bad. He had weeping wounds. He couldn't go outside. He had to be bandaged the whole time. And, on the program, he got rid of all of his eczema, and he's got this beautiful baby skin, and he could go and play outside. And, when we recorded the beautiful story of Archer, he'd just gone and done I think a Spartan race or a little Ironman race with his dad. And, just his whole world's completely changed. It was so beautiful. So, yes, it will help, and it will definitely change. I'm thank you. You're all saying such wonderful things there. And I'm very, 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 very grateful. It's actually an honor for me. I know you all think that it's lovely that I'm helping you, but it's a real honor for me to be able to share this information and guide and support you. It's probably going to make me cry, so let's hold on tight so I don't cry. But I was only talking to my dear friend Christine this morning as we were walking along the beach, and and I was saying, my boy Noah has been through so much, and he, his life has been significantly affected And he will never be what we expected Noah to be, because his brain has developed in such a different way to how a neurotypical child's brain has been developed. But Culture Wellness was set up, and everything I do every single day is to honor what Noah went through, and to honor and to make it worthwhile that he had that situation, and it happened to him. And so now, like, it's my honor, and it's my sort of drive to make sure that what happened to him isn't for nothing, and he didn't ride through all of that, and he didn't go through all of that pain for us just to go, oh, well, we know all of this now, and who cares? So my husband and I and all the team at Culture Wellness are just so dedicated to supporting people, so it wasn't in vain what happened to Noah, and that we can share and help other people. So it was worth it. Noah went through that for a reason. So it does make it a very rewarding experience for all of us on the team to support people. And like you said, very eye-opening, and making sure that our community can see that there's another side and another way of doing things, and questioning the norms and all those sorts of things. Okay, enough about that, because I will start crying because we're talking about my son. So that's about it. Keep asking questions. Stay engaged. Now, see you on Wednesday night. Please jump on and book your spot. I would hate for you to miss out. Don't sit on the fence on this one. We don't, open up our programs and our intakes and do these things very often. So make sure that you join so I can personally work with you. And if not, I will see you on Wednesday. And if the program is not right for you at the moment, keep applying everything that you've learned. Stay involved in this group until it closes. But I'll see you on Wednesday night, and there'll be more questions, more information, and we'll keep posting all of the links for how you can join program and how you can book onto program so you don't miss out on your spot. And thank you, everyone. It's just so wonderful to see you. Take care. Have a lovely afternoon. See ya.